Hello racers, and welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be the first episode of the Mini-B Onroad Series 2. The goal of this series is to tune this RTR Mini-B throughout the series of 5 videos with the goal of placing it on the podium at our Maritime RC Racing Indoor Championships. We're going to cover a few different upgrades that we're going to do. I'll show you how I'm going to tune the car. Well, the format of this video series will be, first we'll show what changes we want to do to the car. Then we'll review the setup of the car. And then what we'll do is we'll review the race footage from the club racing for that week. And then kind of plan out what we're going to do the next week. What I wanted to do with the video, and I was getting some feedback, is that people wanted to know how to tune their cars more, what to look for. So I thought this series would be great to do that. We got lots of upgrades planned for this series, so let's get into it. So first off, let's just kind of review the car, review what the planned changes are for this first episode. Now, just to kind of general go over, we'll start at the back, work our way to the front. In the back we have 35 weight shock oil, and the shocks are put at the outside top and outside bottom for rear stability. You can see we have about 1 millimeter of shims to raise the roll center in the rear to keep the rear from rolling as much. Now for the first of the planned changes is I want to upgrade the system from this brushed motor and speed control to a brushless motor and speed control. So the first upgrade I made was I installed the MIP Slipper clutch. My slipper clutch was the RTR unit, which was like the plastic slipper pads there, or with the blue plastic pads and plastic slipper clutch kit, plastic components, and I replaced it with the MIP aluminum version. Now TLR sells a version, but I figured at the time when I purchased, I put in the MIP, it was available. And the reason I put that in is so I could use the slipper more. I found the plastic parts, just the design of them, I couldn't really run it loose. It was chewing up the pads and things. So I went with the MIP to control the power of a brushless system. The next thing I'm going to do, you can see I have a little built-in fan here. I'm going to replace out this Latrax 370 brushed motor. At the end of the last season, I burnt that motor out, so I'm going to upgrade that to the Furitek Kracken brushless censored motor. So that'll be a great upgrade. This is 6500 kV, and you can see that it's almost like the same size as a standard motor. So that's going to be a great upgrade. To make that work, I built this little cable because I'm going to use a Hobbywing XR10 stock spec speed control with this motor. Probably the first one in the world to do this. It uses a standard 6-pin sensor wire, but the Furitek uses a 5-pin sensor wire. And the difference between a 6-pin and a 5-pin is obviously 1 pin, but that pin controls the temperature probe that is inside 540 motors. So inside a full-size motor that would use this 6-pin connector, one of the wires is going to a temperature sensor in there. And you can set your temperature sensor to turn off the speed control if the motor gets too hot. The Furitek and small scale motors don't have that. So it uses this very small 5-pin connector. So I made that up. You can see the top and the bottom are the black and the red, so that's your plus and minus. The next 3 wires there, the yellow, the white, and the green, those are the sensors, A, B, and C. The blue wire, in my case, was not used because that's the temperature probe in the motor. We're going to hook that up here in a minute. You can see that I have the Urgenex 1100 milliamp hour LiPo battery. That has worked great. And I'm going to take out my Tekin B1R brush speed control, and I'm going to swap it with this XR10 speed control. Now the speed control is very similar in size. I expect it to fit in the car pretty nicely right here. And we'll see how it works. I'm going to kind of rough it in. I won't cut the wires to fit just right away. I'd want to see if it fits in and works. And as I say, I'll be the first one probably in the world to actually use a 1/10 speed control to control this 1/16 small scale motor. We'll see how that goes. Back to the car. I'm still using the stock servo in there with the stock servo saver with a piece of tie wrap on the saver to take up the slack. We'll probably be replacing that in a further video. And in the front of the car we have 40 weight oil, 35 rear, 40 front. Shocks moved all the way out top and bottom. And I should mention that there's 3 millimeters of spacers inside the shock to control the droop. Other than that, all the other settings are the same. I use about a degree of toe out in the front of my car. Let's see if we can see that. About a degree of toe out. That gives a little better initial steering. And I use 0 camber. Tires straight up and down, and you can see the tires pretty well wearing in the middle with that setting. In the rear, I should mention it, I use -1 degree of camber, and you can see that the tires wear just slightly on the inside of the tire versus the outside. I find that is a very stable setup. So what I'm going to do is install my new motor, install my new speed control. I'm going to just double check the shocks, make sure everything has oil in it. I just started doing that before I made this video. Make sure everything's ready to go. We'll take it out on race day, and then when we come back, I'll just review the changes that I might have made during race day, and then we'll take a look at the video of the actual car on track. Okay, well, we'll see you in a few. We're back from our day of racing. So I just wanted to review the final settings for the race day that we made. So you can see I put in the Furitek Kracken brushless motor, and that worked perfect. Lots of speed on the straightaway, good power, but not enough to really upset the car, so that was good. The Hobbywing speed control, you can see that I just roughed the wiring in. There's quite a mess of wires here. Fits in the car nice. One thing I did notice that a little bit funny with the speed control is I adjusted my brake on my transmitter to reduce some of the braking effect, and what I found when I adjusted on my transmitter, it changed the center of the endpoints, so that if I gave it too much, took too much brake away, the car would move forward, and I actually lost reverse. So that and the slipper seemed to be adjusted well. It slipped just on the bottom end, but once it got going, it worked well. But what I found in that day was I got into a bit of traction roll with the new speeds, and as traction came up, the car began to roll. So what I tried to do to prevent the rolling is I widened the front tires, or the front wheelbase, out by putting a shim in between the rim and the hub. You can see that the bolt is pretty much flush on the front, where in the back you can see a bit of the bolt sticking out. So I moved that out to try to prevent traction roll, and as you will see in the video, the running video next, didn't help that much. The next thing I did is I lowered the ride height to keep the traction roll down, and you can see that this is my 10mm ride height gauge. It doesn't really fit under, it lifts the car as I put it under, so it's a little under 10, and I can slide my 8mm gauge right under the car without it touching. So I think it ended up at 9mm. So those are the two things that I tried to prevent the traction roll. Now let's next go into the running video. We'll take a look at how it worked in the race and think about what we can do to make some changes to keep it from rolling and to take advantage of the new speed that we have from that brushless motor. Okay, so let's take a look at the running video. So now let's take a look at how the car was running. Mine is the yellow car that's crossing under the bridge now, going through the infield. And at this point in the race, I was very hopeful that I'd be able to make the bump to the A main. But watch on the bottom right of the screen. Got right into the corner, and that put me down in position early. So at this point I was thinking I had to push a little harder to catch up. Now going through the infield, coming onto the straight. And notice that it was off the screen for a short time. It had traction rolled there, so now at this point I'm finding the car is very hard to drive, and it's with two rolling or front end biting incidents. I'm really having to hold, try not to put down too much power. The areas I was having trouble with was the top left, which is that area coming off a straightaway into like a big sweeping corner, and then the bottom right, which is that hairpin coming into a chicane. So where I was having the most problem here. You can see that I'm going through the infield quite nice, but in the bottom right you can see that I just spun out, and that was a bit of a theme with the car. But what seemed to happen was that the front end would bite and the rear would come around. Now keep an eye on the top left. At that point, just off camera, but you could see it start. Front end bit, and then the car got a little bit sideways and it rolled. And it kind of, people will call that rolling off the rear. And that's what it was kind of doing. So at this point, what it's forced me to do is change driving styles, taking wider corners. You can see the yellow car in the infield now. Much wider, much slower. Can't really push hard. And that was, it's very difficult to drive a car that you can't really push hard. Coming in under the timing bridge now. Through the chicane onto the straight. Okay, we're going through the infield. Now watch the bottom right again. You see the front end bite and the car spin. Seems to be a recurring theme, and it's not right at corner entry, really. It's mid-corner. So keep an eye on that. So at this point I'm learning what the car can do and what I can get out of it. And I've settled in to try to get some consistent laps out. You can see that I'm taking corners very wide, going into that bottom right again. Car is loose in that bottom right section. Big sweeping corners, trying not to get the front end to bite too much. Through the infield. Really gun shy at this point, not pushing the car hard, but just trying to get some consistent laps, trying to catch up to the leaders. Okay, through past the bridge, through the infield, into the bottom right. So I've had about 4 or 5 good laps with it. Now I'm up beside a brushed car. You can see that I do have acceleration to get past the brush, so that's what I was trying to go for. And you can see it has no problem in the straightaway. Through the infield once again.
First. Third. 2 minutes left.
Through the bridge.
Second. First.
Starting to get a little confidence, but maybe overconfident. So watch as the top left got up on 2 wheels. You can see the front bit lifted the car up on 2 wheels.
Third. Fourth.
I think the car behind me at this point is the race leader. I'll give you an idea of the speeds that we're at and where the car is.
In first place, followed by Greg in second place, followed by Jared Mead in third place, followed by Blake in fourth place, followed by Rob in fifth place.
Looks like comparable speeds on the straightaway, just the infield handling is off on the car. I can't really push hard.
Fourth. Second. Third.
So at this point, put together quite a few good laps and getting more confident with the car. You can see that taking corners fairly wide because of the traction rolling.
Fourth. Second.
Traction rolling.
Third. First.
In the infield now with the against that brush motor, you can certainly pull on a brush motor now.
Second.
So beginning late in the race, feeling overconfident, but watch the top left. Car front end dug in, car rolled over.
Second.
So at this point I'm thinking, well, we don't have much chance to go on, so I'm really giving it my all, pushing the car hard at the end of the race. Going now through the infield. The race is just about over. Give it all I can on the straight and rolls at the end of the straight. So in the next video, we're going to really focus on traction rolling. Maybe put some comments and suggestions in the comments below. Maybe you can help me figure out the traction roll situation. Like if you like, and subscribe. Thanks.